This week on London Real, we have the author, investor, and motivational speaker, Robert Kiyosaki.
The harder you work for money, the poorer you get. I don't save money, I borrow money. The rich don't work for money, they work for assets. And today in America is the entitlement dream, that I'm going to get somebody to take care of me. I'm a hardcore capitalist. I should provide for myself. I don't want the government to take care of me. When people say it's un-American to not pay taxes, it's really un-American to pay taxes. I see a lot of relationships where they died, the marriage is dead. We have an agreement, if there's an upset in our relationship that's more than 45 minutes long, we call a therapist. So when I was in the Marine Corps one day in Vietnam, the warrior spirit left. I didn't want to kill anymore. Okay. It was over.
London Real presents Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I don't work for money, I work to solve problems.
A lot of you know that I used to work in the finance industry right here around Liverpool Street Station in London. That was after I took finance courses at the Sloan School of Management at MIT and then went on to trade interest rate derivatives, credit derivatives, bond futures, you name it. And for 15 years I got a certain education in finance, but it wasn't until a week ago when I sat down to speak with this episode's guest that I really learned about finance. And this week on the show we have Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was an amazing, groundbreaking book that came out in the 1990s. He went on to be a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was pretty huge at the time. And Robert talked about some basic things, a fascinating story of two dads that he had in Hawaii. One was an academic who was well paid but struggled every week to pay his bills. And the other one was a dropout from high school who was more of an entrepreneur, who taught Robert that you should make money work for you and you shouldn't work for money. And it's just an amazing way to think about things differently, and how we're all in a way brainwashed from when we're born that we need to get an education so we can get a job to make money and make those ends meet, when in fact we should be collecting assets, and assets are investments that give you free cash flow. And one of the biggest mistakes that Robert says we make, especially in America, is thinking that your house is an asset, when in fact he says it's a liability. And I could go on and on about Robert and some of the fantastic things that he says. I listened to his audiobook, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, for 6 hours straight after I interviewed him, just to catch up, and it's really fascinating stuff, and it's got me really thinking a lot about my own investments, my own concepts of money, and I think you're going to love it. So I hope you enjoyed my time with Robert. It was very difficult to get time with him. He's super popular. He travels around the world giving seminars, and he was giving one in London. I caught him at his lunch break, and we just sat down and had a great conversation together. I asked Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, about ayahuasca. Yes, that's how crazy things get at London Real. And he had a fantastic answer. We didn't just talk finance, we talked personal relationships. We talked about him being in the Vietnam War and getting tired of killing people, and also his thoughts on meditation and some of his other principles to keep his head straight. So I think you'll really enjoy this. I had a wonderful time with Robert. It was a true honor to sit down with one of the greats. He's written books with Donald Trump. It's just, I can't say enough about Robert. So I hope you enjoy, and if you do, please share this and send it to your friends and let people know. How would you like to win some Primal 26 protein powder and a fantastic 50-page ebook on supplementation and diet right now for free? I would, and this is the stuff that's kept me in those muscle ups every week. They're getting me fit, getting me strong and ripped. And right now you can win the protein powder and an ebook shipped to you anywhere in the UK or Europe. All you have to do is click on the link below, or go to our Twitter account right now at London Real TV and retweet the link posted to the top. It says Monkey Nutrition Giveaway in all caps, and we're going to be giving away to the very first 10 people that retweet the protein powder, and for the next 100, a free ebook. This is just an exciting offer. I'm so excited. All you have to do is click the retweet button, and we'll find you. Follow us so we can DM you and give you the goods. And we might give a few more out on Monday. We'll see. But check that out, and check these guys out. They make some amazing products. They really have the science down when it comes to their protein powder and their other supplementation, and they really think about it. This ebook is fantastic, and it really breaks down a lot of myths that we have in our head. So very excited about the Monkey Nutrition guys, and please retweet this on, and you'll be in a chance to win. So there you go. I'm going to see some of my banking colleagues here as I walk through the city. It's always fun to see the looks that I get. You probably noticed me sporting this dope London Real t-shirt, and be sure to grab those on our website under the term gear. They ship anywhere for free in the UK and the US, and we got hoodies and coffee cups coming soon, so check that out. And finally, just a big shout out to the guys at Bulletproof. I just served some yesterday to a fabulous singer and songwriter named Aya Marar, and she loved it. I gave her some brain octane oil to go, and if you're not familiar, it's a coffee that's free of molds and toxins. You mix it up with grass-fed butter, and I serve it to all of my guests on the show, and they all love it. It's got a 100% success rate, so get involved and check that out. Also, you can get the Bulletproof Diet book. Click to pre-order, and you get 6 free videos from the guys at Bulletproof, and that book will be coming out in a few months. It's going to be huge. So big thanks to those guys. I'm just going to take a final little stroll here through the city. We got the last day of sunshine here in London, and I keep saying that, but I know it's probably true. And there you go. I'm going to keep this one short. I hope you enjoyed the Kiyosaki interview. Like I said, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and let me know what you think of the show. And if you have more guests that we should do, send me a mail at brian@londonreal.tv. I think I just got a shout out from a car there. And now I leave you with the one and only, the Rich Dad Poor Dad author, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, who is an American investor, businessman, self-help author, motivational speaker, financial commentator, and now podcaster.
Podcaster.
Yes. You've written over 15 books, which have a combined sales of over 26 million copies, including the universally known Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert, welcome to London Real.
Thank you. Honored.
You know, thanks so much for being here. I remember you said one time, I don't need a paycheck, I don't want a paycheck, I'm a rich man, but I work for free. And when I see you say those words on stage, it's really powerful, and it kind of just shakes me. And I was wondering if you could explain, what do you mean by that?
Well, for those who have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, chapter 1, the title says the rich don't work for money. And most people don't understand that because they've already been genetically programmed from parents and schools to go to school and get a job and work hard for money. Now, the harder you work for money, the poorer you get. And the reason for that is money was designed to steal our wealth. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, because it makes me richer. But like the yin and yang of life, everything has opposite sides. So everything that Rich Dad taught me was opposite of what my poor dad was a school teacher, you know, good people, but they don't know anything about money. So on one side, my poor dad's always saying, work hard, you know, go to school, get a job, save money, and get out of debt. On the opposite side, the yang side, don't do that, you know. So when I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was about the opposites. That's all it was. And the rich don't work for money. The richest people in the world don't work for money. You know, but the average person, that's not part of their consciousness. So you look at Steve Jobs. His paycheck was $1 a year.
Right. Same with Bezos as well, right?
Yeah, they don't want money. So the reason I say and I do and I speak and I teach is kind of just the yin and the yang. You got to see the other side too. Because so many people, and I don't know about here, but the economy is pretty bad in America, and they're rushing back to school. Gotta be stupid. School teaches you nothing about money. There's fewer and fewer jobs, and taxes are higher. Why would you do that? You know, if you save money, you're taxed. You work hard, you're taxed, and you put your money in a retirement plan, you're taxed. That's not that intelligent, but that's what they teach you in school. So it's opposite, and that's why I come up on stage and I talk about the opposite, just to open your mind a bit.
You said that education is not putting stuff in, but pulling stuff out of your brain. You know, I have a 10-year-old now, and I'm looking around London for her secondary education. I'm looking at all these schools, and then I hear what you say, and I'm thinking, are they going to teach her the wrong things? Should people not go to school, or should they go to school questioning what they're being taught?
Well, that's the most important thing. Question it. You see, if you just assume all schools are equal and all schools will do a good job, you're not doing your job as a parent. Obviously, you should question and then ask yourself, what does my child need to learn? So if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they're not learning what my rich dad taught me, excuse me. You know, it's like, I don't want a job. Can you imagine being in high school? You know, I grew up in the 60s going, but I don't want a job. You know, and they go, and it violates all the Puritan beliefs. You gotta work hard, you gotta be a tax-paying person, but I don't want to do that. And in most schools, that type of philosophy or thought is not allowed. You know, I got spanked, scolded, thrown out of school for having what they call radical ideas. But again, I said, Steve Jobs made $1 a year, Bezos $1 a year. I don't want a paycheck. And I'm not giving the answer. I'm just saying, why don't they want a paycheck? And that's when you start to learn. When you ask the question, you start to learn. And as a parent, you got to ask yourself, what are they going to teach my child?
Yeah.
You know, will they damage my child or will they educate my child? Education comes from the Greek word educe. Educe means to draw out of a person. But what schools too oftentimes do is they put in, not draw out.
So they're kind of giving her a subconscious message that you're doing all this training so you can work for someone someday. And
that's
you know,
what I think.
right, and buy a house.
I didn't want to do that.
Right, okay. And buy a house that's not an asset, but a liability.
Yeah.
And work up these school loans, and then you pay them off. And it's almost, I don't know, I guess it's not a slave mentality, but it really is this.
It's a paycheck mentality.
A paycheck mentality.
Look at the other side. They say, don't get into debt. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs.
Right.
You know?
Because as a businessman, you want some leverage.
Well, there's good debt and bad debt. See, bad debt is debt I have to pay for. So my house, I have to pay for it. So it's bad debt. Mortgage is bad debt. At the same time, I have about $300 million in debt. But it's good debt because my tenants pay it off. My landlord. So I'll say it again. So good debt is debt that somebody else pays off for me.
Right.
And so that was the lesson of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the way my rich dad began teaching me when I was age 9 was just playing Monopoly. You know, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel.
Love that game.
Yeah, today I own red hotels, you know. And I go back home, and my family, they're all school teachers. They say, oh, Robert, have you found a job yet? And I go, no. Oh, too bad, too bad. You see, they can only see one side of the yin and the yang.
Right.
The rich are the other side. My point is, the reason it's hard for the poor and middle class to get rich is because the philosophy, the thoughts, the actions, the education is opposite. I don't save money, I borrow money. Okay, once you understand that, I go, why would he do that? Well, if I can borrow money, I never have to say I can't afford it. You know, I can afford anything I want as long as I can borrow for it. So debt is good, but it takes education.
Okay. You said once that inside every one of us is a poor person. Inside every one of us is the one that goes to the supermarket and thinks, oh, I better buy the cheaper this or buy the cheaper that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And
like I'm in this hotel.
Right.
And they want $8 for a bottle of water. I said, I'd rather drink tap water than pay $8. You know, I mean, and I can afford the $8. It's just insulting that they want $8 for a bottle of water.
Right. But you're saying that mentality can hurt you as well because it puts you in a frame of conserving my income as opposed to going out.
It's just being conscious.
Okay.
You know, being conscious of who is talking at this moment. Is it the poor person?
Right.
So like it really was last night, my wife and I got checked in our hotel room and said, want a bottle of water. I wanted to pay $3 for the bottle of water, but not $8. You know, so there was a battle going on between the rich person and poor person inside of me. Finally, the poor person won. I'm going to drink tap water, even though it kills my health. And I go through the same problems anybody else does.
Right. And then that poor person is the conservative person, the person that doesn't want to take risks, the one that wants to conform.
That's more the middle class.
Oh, that's middle class. Okay.
So the middle class person middle class believes in a big paycheck, good education, job security, and a pension. You know, so they, like when I was a Marine pilot, most of my friends stayed in the Marine Corps, not because they loved the Marine Corps, but it was a good pension. And I said, well, that's not very spiritual, you know. Or most school teachers want the steady paycheck. Now, my point of view is, psychically, that's what they broadcast onto a child.
Right.
So if the teacher believes in a steady job, a steady paycheck, and no risk, and job security, any idea a child may have, like your child may say, well, I don't like that idea. They get crushed.
Right.
Okay, that's the risk.
Okay. And also subconsciously they're getting this message that these people are happy to kind of have these jobs for life and collecting these paychecks, and yeah.
And then when I say, well, Steve Jobs gets paid $1 a year, it doesn't compute because it's not inside their little box.
Right, right.
You know, outside the box thinking, well, that's not possible, you know.
Right. You know, you go around the world, you give up and you give these huge talks. I know your parents always said it was important for you to be of service. And is that something that's always on your mind?
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have to do this. I mean, you could stay in Arizona, you know, you've got your books and everything. Do you feel like that's something we all need to do?
I don't like to speak to all people, but I do think that service is important. Like I served the Marine Corps, not because I wanted to fight in Vietnam, but because it was service, you know. And once I got there, I'm glad I went there, but I'll never do that again. You know, the U.S. government lied to us in Vietnam.
Okay.
And at that point, I said, I'm out of here.
And you knew that at the time, or you realized that later?
I realized that there because I was a top secret officer. And
Okay.
once I could see the truth coming across the messages, they're lying to us.
Okay.
You know, we weren't there for the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese. We were there because of oil. So if you look at Vietnam today, there's a war on in Vietnam yet, and it's for the oil rights off of Vietnam. That's why Royal Dutch Shell is there. That's where Conoco is there. That's why those guys are there. We fought for oil. Always remember that all wars are about money.
Money, right, and power.
Yeah, well, money and
Money.
war. Look at ISIS. I think that's kind of, you know, I don't agree what they're doing. But they took what we know, they captured the oil fields, which we're bombing right now, and then
Right.
they buy our weapons and they come kill us. So I say, well, they're just doing what we do to them.
Right.
You know, they're not stupid.
Would you say that a lot of this generation has this entitlement mentality where they kind of expect things, expect the job and expect the paycheck? What do we do about this generation? You know, should they go to the military, or how do we get people to kind of snap out of that entitlement frame?
That's hard to say. The entitlement mentality is alive and well in America. Before, it used to be the American dream.
Right.
You know, you're from San Diego and all that.
Yeah.
It was the American dream.
It's in your blood, you
Yeah.
know, when you grow up there.
And today in America is the entitlement dream, you know, that I'm going to get somebody to take care of me. You look at America today, 47% don't pay any tax. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad, because the rich don't pay tax either.
Right.
But what's happening in America, as you know, is that the government should take care of me, which is socialism. And I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but I'm a hardcore capitalist. You know, I think I should work for my money. I mean, I should provide for myself. I don't want the government to take care of me. So it's just philosophies at war right now.
Right. You know, on your podcast recently, you had the UFC fighter Miles Jury on, and you talked about this theme of fighting your inner wimp. And I was wondering what you were trying to say by that. And I was surprised to hear you admit that you have to fight your inner wimp sometimes, because we see you on stage, and you know you're kind of our hero. So
this wimp here. No, you know, every morning there's a classic battle. Like I got up this morning, right? And it's a battle between the fat boy and the stud, Rambo.
Okay.
And generally it's fat boy that wins. And he goes, should I go to the gym? Nah, don't go to the gym. Have a cup of coffee. Okay, have a cup of coffee, you know. And that's the battle.
Right.
So the wimp wins. And the same as in business. You know, the moment I have enough money, it's really hard to get motivated again. Because if I just make more money, it's just more money. I don't need it.
Right.
You know? And then I give a lot of it away, which is nice. But there's really got to be the juice and the fire, you know, a sense of mission. I don't work for money. I work to solve problems. And the biggest problem I see in this economic crisis is lack of financial education. And it starts at the top. Excuse me. So we have a lot of highly educated poor people running our government. President Obama is one of them.
Right.
He's a poor man who's highly educated. I'm not saying he's a bad man.
Right.
But his philosophy is a poor man's philosophy.
And he's very academic, right? Law degree,
yeah,
etc.
like my poor dad.
Like your poor dad, right?
We had this guy, George Bush, who was a rich kid born with a silver spoon in the mouth. And he's stupid too. I mean, how can he lose an oil company? You know what I mean? His daddy gave him an oil company. He lost it. That's almost impossible to do. You know what I mean? So I look at who's running our country, and they go, and then I have this guy Clinton. He's doing the real thing in the office called the White House having sex, and he lies about it. I'm going, God, what is that teaching our kids, So our leaders are not necessarily leaders, they're kind of disappointing.
Do we need to start teaching financial education in, 8th grade or 5th grade or 4th grade? Do we need to have small business classes when children are young?
Well, the good news is happening.
It is slowly, right?
Yeah, CNN, this is the way it works, okay? It takes 50 years for a new idea to enter the school system. 50 years.
50, wow.
Yeah. Same as construction industry. It's a very slow industry. Construction, you have a new idea like, do X, Y, Z. It's 50 years before it's fully implemented. Now, in technology, look at these cameras around us. It's about 18 months.
Right.
So different industries have different, what they call lag times. So education and construction are the longest lag times. So I wrote my first book in 1992, and the title was, If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School. Now the reason I did that was just to start the clock. The moment I published that book, and it was trademark and all that legalized trademark, the 50 years began. That's kind of my logic.
All right.
So now it's, let's say, 2014, we're now at 10, 20, 30 years into it.
Right.
So the clock is now starting to run. So I know another 20 years, there'll be financial education in schools. Everybody will say, well, why didn't we do that? It's so obvious.
Right.
But today it's not obvious.
Right.
Whereas in technology, if I told you you have a GoPro right there, that guy kicked butt.
Yeah, billion plus company now after it's float.
He took technology, made it smaller, better, and cheaper.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to do as entrepreneurs, make it smaller, better, cheaper. That's why the web is kicking ass right now, because it's smaller, better, cheaper than mainstream broadcasts like the BBC or ABC. So we're in this world of complete upheaval today because technology is changing the world.
Yeah. Well, our tagline is we're putting the BBC out of business.
That's good business.
So now we're broadcasting and independent media.
Oh, because they're not doing what the people want.
Right.
It's too expensive. It's too slow. It's too cumbersome.
Yeah. It's a bloated kind
So
of.
GoPro, man, you just strap that baby on and you're into the world. I'm not tech savvy, but I love the idea.
Yeah, those are fantastic. We love them.
Yeah.
Your poor dad was he ran education for Hawaii. Is that right? And you obviously wrote a book with his name in there. And your family is all academic. When you go back to Hawaii, have they forgiven you for the rich dad poor dad phenomenon? Have any of them acquiesced to your viewpoint?
No.
No. Do you speak to them still?
Some of them.
Okay.
I am basically the black sheep of the family.
Black sheep still.
Well, like I said, I go home today, and my family have no idea what I've done, and they still ask me, have you found a job yet?
Still ask you that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and when I say I don't want a job because I take a paycheck, well, what's wrong with a paycheck? You see, in their mind, that is their world. And what we call it the paradigm shift or the paradox of life is sometimes what you think is true is not true. But in my mother and father, my uncles and aunts, my cousins, they all think they have to have a paycheck. And the richest guys in the world don't have paychecks.
Right.
That's the paradox.
Right. Well, you said it's the most exciting time to be alive right now for young people. There's so many opportunities. You speak to entrepreneurs like today. What is the most common sticking point you see from entrepreneurs when they come to you? What do you see right away that they're just not doing?
Well, I think the most important thing is that they're working for money. Because that Rich Dad Poor Dad, just go to chapter 1, the rich don't work for money. Then the question is, well, if they're not working for money, what do they work for? But too often they just he's just saying that, but they never go into study and figure what the heck is he saying. So the answer, I'll give people the answer, is the rich don't work for money; they work for assets. An asset produces cash flow, not a paycheck. Cash flow is not taxed; paychecks are taxed.
Right.
The guys that pay the highest tax are the self-employed, small business guys. But they keep saying, well, he says don't work for money, but I have a business. You've got to convert your cash into an asset, not the stock market, into an asset. So I have a friend, 50 years ago, he's an old guy now, but he was like 12, 15. His grandmother gets him chickens. And so he started producing brown eggs, you know.
Yeah.
This is in the States. And he started selling his eggs. Then one day he decided to sell a chicken. Then he was out of eggs. I see. He cognized, he says, if I kill chickens, I don't have eggs. But if I reinvest my egg money into more chickens, I have more eggs. And which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He realized the egg has got to come first. So today, he is in his 60s or 70s. He produces 10 million eggs a day. And his whole focus is to serve more people and produce more eggs. So now he has huge acres of chickens producing eggs, shipping eggs all over the U.S. The guy is a multi-billionaire because he's not only selling chickens, he's selling feathers, fertilizer, all because he saved the chicken.
Right. So he understood the concept of an asset there.
Yeah, the chicken was the asset.
Okay.
Excuse.
You know, your famous quadrant system is all about minimizing tax. And like you said, self-employed people, the ones that start businesses in this country, shouldn't be the highest taxes in my brain. But some people say it's un-American not to pay taxes. What do you say about that?
Well, because they don't know what they're talking about. See, America, we're here in England today.
Yes.
Do you remember just recently in Scotland there was a yes or no vote?
Yeah.
Yes to go independent, no to stay with England. Well, America went through the same yes or no vote back in 1776. They said, hey, screw you, England. We're not going to pay your taxes anymore.
That was the no vote, right?
Yeah. It was, and then that was a terrible thing called the American Revolution. And, you know, once the revolutionaries were just a small group. They weren't a majority, but they kept fighting. Under George Washington, they kept fighting. And a lot of Americans fought the revolutionaries. They fought George Washington. But when George Washington won, I think about 400,000 were kicked out of America. You know, they said, you guys went against the colonies, out of here. So when people say America, it's un-American to not pay taxes, it's really un-American to pay taxes. Because America was founded on no tax basis.
Right. There was no federal income tax until the 1900s, right?
1913.
Right.
Well, 1916.
So when you avoid taxes, you've said you're doing what the government wants you to do, and that's why there's tax incentives.
Yeah. For example, if I'm an employee, I pay higher taxes than being an employer.
Right.
So the more employees I have, the less tax I pay. Now my employees get all upset. Well, how can you not pay tax? Well, the reason is government wants jobs. So an entrepreneur, creates jobs. So because I create jobs, I get tax break. They also want me to produce housing. So my wife and I have about 4,500 housing, low-income housing. We get massive tax breaks for that. Free money, basically. The other thing we invest in is food. We invest in farms and all that. Because we produce food, we get tax breaks. Government wants food. And the other thing is oil, because oil is energy. People say, well, the greenhouse effect. Well, oil is used in plastics and everything around us. Oil is used, fertilizer. So because the tax programs are stimuluses for entrepreneurs to do certain things, we pay no tax. But if you do what the government doesn't want you to do, which is have a job and work hard, they tax you.
Okay.
If you save money, you're taxed. You go into debt, you're not taxed. Think about that one.
I've never heard anyone present it the way you do.
It's
when you draw that quadrant, you're like, what is going on? I am the fool.
Well, it's yin and yang, the yin and the yang. There's always one side. The hard part for the poor and middle class is the rich are opposite. When I'm saying I don't pay tax, they think I'm criminal, but I'm not. I can only do it because the government grants me the power to do that, because I'm doing what the government wants me to do. See, I drive my car like anybody else, but I also have about 400 oil wells, so I produce oil. And I get huge tax breaks for oil. Because if there was no oil, the economy would collapse. No, the greenies go nuts, but let them create solar power, and then you won't be arguing with me.
But you've been talking about going inside yourself and looking inside yourself about what you want. I think you've been talking about meditation since the beginning, and you've been talking about how someone needs to find their element to figure out what they're going to do. And it's something that's come up on our show every now and then. Have you ever thought about, this latest fascination with ayahuasca or these psychedelics, about people going inside their brains? And like you said, you shouldn't be as scared of what's inside your brain, but so many people lock that trauma deep inside. Have you thought about any of that, and do you think that's appropriate for anyone to explore?
Well, I don't know really what ayahuasca is and all this,
Okay.
but I'm constantly going into my subconscious. And it's like, I don't do drugs. I never did LSD. I thought about it, but I didn't do it.
In the 60s, and you didn't.
Yeah, but I just wanted to find out what's in there. So I have specially trained people who guide me into my subconscious. It's Pandora's box in there, man. It's alive and well.
Yeah.
It's wacky.
It is.
It's wacky.
Yeah. Some people are scared of their own brain.
Yes, and they should be.
Right.
You be careful if somebody messes with your brain. But for about 30 years now, I've just been digressing into it. So I go into it, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's like a movie goes off when I'm in my subconscious. I think that's where your dreams come from also, like this. And so I don't really know about past lives and all that stuff, but I've experienced them when I go back in time. I find out why I'm upset about something. I found, my partners in business, I'm all upset with one of them, so I go into it, I find out what the upset's about. It has nothing to do with them. They just triggered the upset in me.
It's you. It's an issue you're dealing with yourself.
The pain's in here.
Right, and you lash out on someone on the surface.
So like my wife, I don't know how she's put up with me. You love the one you're with, but a lot of times you beat up the one you're with too, because my wife sees the worst side of me too. So that's why the biggest lie I ever told, and they lived happily ever after. There's no such thing. Because you see the best and the worst of a person. It's easy when you're on a date sipping wine for the first time. Oh, she's pretty cute. He's pretty cute. You get married, man. The box opens.
And what is your secret to keeping a long marriage?
Well, my wife and I.
And you're in business together too, which can strain a relationship.
We have an agreement. If there's an upset in our relationship that's more than 45 minutes long, we call a therapist.
Smart.
Yeah, that's what therapists get paid for, is to handle our garbage. So if I'm angry with Kim, which is most of the time, she rarely gets angry with me. She says, "Oh, go call her." Okay. But it's something I'm not. It's an incomplete thought in my head, or incomplete emotion. Like a lot of times, she probably triggers my mom. I'm so upset with my mom, or I'm her dad, and so the therapist just handles the upset, not right or wrong.
Right.
And I see a lot of relationships where they died. The marriage is dead. There's just two bodies spending time together, and they don't talk about it because the last time they talked, they got into a fight.
Right.
So they sit there nice and polite.
Right.
And they don't say what they really want to say. The marriage is dead. Love is a function of communication.
Right. So you need to communicate. If you have a problem, get someone else involved. Get it out there.
Yeah. If I can't communicate well, get somebody else to interpret.
Okay.
It's important. Marriage is important.
Right. What's next for you in the next couple of years? Is it touring the world and talking to people and looking them face to face? Is it another book? What do you feel like you still need to leave the world with?
That's kind of a tough question, because I'm right there right now, because I don't know.
Okay.
I say it this way: our spirit has many facets. If you have a child, then your maternal, paternal facet of your spirit comes out.
Okay.
Where with me, growing up in Hawaii, I was a surfer, so I had a free spirit, and I didn't do well in school.
Right.
Surfing all the time, and then I went into the military, 4 years of military school and 6 years of the Marine Corps, and it developed the warrior spirit. Now the problem is when that warrior spirit comes back into the real world, it doesn't do well. So then I had to take all that spiritual energy of the warrior spirit and divert it into the entrepreneur spirit, because corporate world is another spirit. So when I entered the corporate world for Xerox, I thought I died and went to hell. I just couldn't play the games. I'm glad they do.
Right.
I'm going to get a promotion. Someday I'll be vice president.
Fake. Okay.
Well, for me it would be. For them, they love it. Like some people like soccer, some people like rugby. It's just, I love rugby because there's more contact.
Right, right.
Soccer, there's contact too, but I just don't understand. I can't punch the guy.
Okay, okay,
So it's a different facets to our spirit.
okay.
So,
You know,
so when I was in the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
one day in Vietnam, the warrior spirit left. I didn't want to kill anymore. It was
Okay.
over.
okay,
And that's another problem began because I had to fight some more. You know, my job was to kill people. And that's when a lot of problems began because my spirit evolved out. My body was still there. And I didn't want to do it anymore.
okay,
So you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we all get to these points where it's time to move on.
okay.
Spirit says, hey, done enough, move on.
Okay. Speaking of moving on, you're heading out to the stage now. Robert, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As we say on London Real, it's about the journey, and I wish you well on yours. Thank you.
Thanks very much, man.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Good luck to you.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.
This week on London Real, we have American businessman and financial commentator Peter Schiff.
If I make 100 million, I had to create a lot of jobs to make that money. That's the point.
Property prices are too high, stock prices are too high. They have to come down.
You know, the banks, they know what they're doing, but if they knew what they're doing, how'd they cause the crash?
Our whole economy in the U.S. is based on debt. It's based on borrowing to consume, borrowing to speculate.
We don't have a genuine recovery. It's phony.
All the Fed did is blow some air back into the deflating bubble.
People should make themselves more aware of what they need to do so they don't end up losing their pension, end up losing all their savings.
We're starving Main Street for capital while we're propping up Wall Street.
Relying on hope is not a strategy.
On Sunday, London Real presents Peter Schiff, Market Crash 2014.
It's not that I want bad things to happen. I just know that even worse things will happen if we put it off.